see if we can knock out another story tonight. A lot of work tonight, or later, so we'll see if we can get ghost gold coins, and I don't know if we have time for Harold Newell. I think it's only the one page, so yeah, I think we could do 3. Let me just get this up and running. That buzzing sound is annoying as hell. Can't be done. I haven't even put all the toys away from the last plushie haul I just did. I still got a pile in the middle of the living room floor. Ooh, pardon me. That's not what I wanted. Hang on a second. I hit the wrong button. There we go. All right, let's begin my poor reading out loud of stories. Where'd it go? Shit. All right, let's begin. Okay, do ghosts really haunt the Churchill Manor? Mansion. Manor, M-A-N. Mansion. The legend of Captain Aaron Flint Churchill and his heroism aboard the Research in mid-November 1861 is well known to many Nova Scotians. On that cold night, the rudder of the ship gave way in rough seas. Churchill, only 16 at the time, stripped to the waist and was lowered over the side of the ship into the icy North Atlantic water, where, after several attempts, was able to fasten a new rudder onto the vessel. For this bravery, he was rewarded with a gold watch and chain, as well as $2,000. In addition, he was nicknamed Rudder Churchill for the rest of his life. But Rudder Churchill was more famous than repairing faulty rudders on stricken ships. By the age of 21, he was a captain and sailed around the world for the next 3 years. Then, at age 24, he retired from the sea and became a businessman. It was in commerce that Churchill would make his mark. Churchill settled in Savannah, Georgia, around 1874. The American Civil War was over, and Atlanta was recovering from the ravages of war. Like the rest of the city, Churchill began building a new life and career. He loved ships and sailing, so he started a successful Salvador-Dory business, which he ran for 14 years. Then, around 1888, he moved back to New Brunswick, where he developed a type of cotton press used to compress the cotton for shipping. To market these more effectively throughout the American South, he also set up the Churchill Compress Company. As a result, he moved back to Savannah around 1899. He then set up another company known as Churchill Lines. It was a shipping company and would soon become very successful. Based out of Savannah, the heart of cotton country, Churchill's main cargo handled on board his ship would be cotton. But by the early 1900s, Churchill was among the richest men in Canada. His company had grown tremendously. On top of this, he was involved in Savannah Line, which was a huge shipping company. Throughout his career, Churchill fondly remembered his native Yarmouth County, so it came as no surprise when he built the anchorage in Darling's Lake near Yarmouth in the late 1890s. The anchorage was built during an era of wealth and prosperity in Yarmouth. It was the peak of the era of wooden ships and iron men. The Churchill Mansion was a classic Victorian summer estate built high upon a hill with an incredible view over the nearby countryside. Gardeners tended to wonderful beds of white alum, pansies, phlox, and roses. Servants scurried around the interior of the mansion, catering to whims of the Churchill family and their often distinguished guests. By 1917, Churchill was at the peak of his financial career. He had interest in 9 ongoing ocean-going steamers, several railway lines, as well as a massive ocean terminal in Boston, New York, and Savannah. But in 1920, Captain Aaron Flint Churchill died of cerebral hemorrhage. His wife, Louis, died in 1928. By 1930, the wonderful estate lay empty. With the onset of the Depression in the 1930s, the era of prosperity and relaxation was over. Over the next 40 years in the community, would often talk about the ghosts that haunt the old mansion, high up on the hill overlooking the community. Yeah. Mrs. Claire Harris, as a little girl, recalled that she was always went by the mansion on the way to and from Port Maitland to Darling's Lake. She claimed that she heard screaming and slamming noises as if things were being thrown around the empty mansion. Older people in the community told her that it was Lottie, the daughter of Captain Churchill. She was known for being very violent when she was in the house. It was said the house made her insane. When Lottie stayed at the estate before her death of her parents, they would always have someone secretly watching out for her. Locals claimed that Captain Churchill was afraid of what she might do to herself. Lottie also had nurses taking care of her. Many of them would take on other roles like maids, cooks, etc., so the local residents wouldn't realize Lottie's insanity. Some claimed that she was an adopted daughter of Captain Aaron Churchill. Lottie was mainly an artist. She loved to paint. By 1930s, locals claimed that she became very loud and aggressive towards others. In the end, she began to get very hateful and bitter. She often hurt the one she loved. Lottie left the mansion shortly after her mother's death and spent the rest of her days in the United States, apparently under professional care. She died in 1971, and the estate was finally settled and sold. But even though the mansion was empty every summer, it was said that the ghosts lived there for 2 months, just like the Churchills used to. One local male resident, who does not wish to be identified, claims he saw the doors shutting and opening for no reason, lights going on and off, and doors locking and unlocking on their own. Can we see everything? There we go. He wasn't the only one to see odd things happening. Mrs. Claire Harris recalled always seeing the curtains move when she went by. Sometimes she would think she saw a face. She thought that there was always seemed to be watching them while they were playing in the yard from the windows of the mansion, even though it was abandoned at the time. Who was watching them? She claimed that they had even saw the person standing there. Some residents claim that the ghost is said to be a woman by some, and others saw a man. Ooh, I had to read there for a minute. Another popular tale has it that after Captain Churchill's death, a male relative went into the cupola on top of the mansion and hung himself. Then, Captain Churchill's wife went up the stairs to see what was going on and saw him hanging in the cupola. She startled, fell backwards down the stairs leading to the cupola, and died of a heart attack. Lottie, the daughter, came upstairs, seeing the man hanging and her mother dead, and immediately went insane. I've heard that story. A great story, but for most part untrue and unsubstantiated. First of all, a Churchill did hang himself, but that was in a barn down the road in 1917. If you look at the cupola, there's nowhere any evidence of any spot where a person could commit such an action and almost logistically impossible to accomplish such a feat. As for Lewis dying of a heart attack, well, she did, but not until 1928. There was no tragic event which triggered it. Lewis Churchill died of natural causes, and Lottie's alleged insanity, well, if that part is true, it was something that built up over the years and not a sudden thing as suggested by the legends. The main question that everyone wants to answer are: 1. Is there a spirit? There's no P in the word or. Is there a spirit or ghost in Churchill Mansion? If so, who is it and why is it there? No one really knows. Many locals believe that if the mansion is haunted, it has been said that it has warm and caring spirit. Present owner Bobby Benson is somewhat neutral on the subject. Benson is more than willing to welcome guests, but he claims not to have any encounters with any spirits or ghosts. Recently, a CBC report with the television program Road Movies spent a night in the mansion alone. She had a wonderful evening with no occurrences. Other people who have stayed at the mansion report similar non-eventful evenings. Well, what about the legends? Why were they preparated? P-E-R-P-E-T rated. Perpetuated? So why the stories? Well, if you want to protect an empty house full of furniture and valuables, what better way than to invent a violent ghost to protect your home while you're away? The Churchill ghost, truly still a mystery, but probably more fiction than fact. I've been by there. The place does look haunted. But I've had a motel for 5 years. And during that time, there was a lot of construction here in Yarmouth. So finding places for the construction workers, a couple of people ended up staying at the Churchill Mansion. It was an inn at the time. And it was the next morning, bright and early. A car pulls up in our yard, and he comes out and he comes into the office and he asks if we have a room. And I said, yeah. So we booked the room for a month and got him a cup of coffee, sat him down because he hadn't slept the night before. It had been like a thunderstorm. And apparently he had heard the stories of the ghosts in Churchill Mansion as well. And he was in his room. And it was a thunder and lightning storm, like a horror movie storm. And right across from his bed on the wall is this giant painting of Churchill. And he said he didn't sleep a wink because the picture was watching him all night. So he ended up staying with us for the rest of his stay. But I thought that was kind of funny. Alrighty. Gold coins found in a stone wall. I've heard this one too, before these books came out. Robert Thurston, luck took a turn for the better in August 1948. Roger and some other men were working on a stone wall on Joel Smith's property in Sanford. As Thurston lifted a stone, he discovered 2 badly discolored cow horns. He picked them up and was about to throw them to one side. As he proceeded to throw them, however, a plug came out of one of the horns and gold coins spilled out. The other plug was also removed, and that was filled with American gold pieces as well. The plug was made of wood and had been secured with a nail, which, at the point, was rusted. There were 240 coins in all. 7 of them were $20 gold pieces. The remaining range in value up to $10. The total value of the coins was $1,000. Thurston did not keep all the money for himself. He shared it with his workmates, Floyd Shaw, Leonard Shaw, Herbert Madden, and George Williams. To this day, no one knows where the gold coins came from or who it was that hid them in the wall. Although there is speculation that the coins were hidden by pirates, bank robbers, or captains, the truth has never been learned. 1948. Remember when? No, I don't. This year marked the end of an era in Canadian politics. Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King retired from office after several serving longer than any other leader in the British Commonwealth, serving 7,828 days. Meanwhile, in the United States, Harry S. Truman was serving as president. By 1948, Canada's population was almost 13 million people. Post-war annual income had grown to an average of $2,016 per year. Gas prices were around 30 cents a gallon. Bread was also selling for 30 cents. A loaf, and milk was selling for 25 cents a liter. House prices had risen dramatically. By 1948, a three-bedroom home would run around $7,700. A new car would cost about $1,714. And in 1948, tail fins appeared on the new Cadillacs. This style would be copied by other cars over the next few years. In science and technology, Michelin marketed the first radial tire. Latex paint came on the market for the first time, replacing oil and lead-based varieties. Magnetic tapes were released, and the tape recorder came into existence. In sports, the first Olympic Games since 1936 were held at Wembley Stadium in London. The Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup over Detroit. In football, the Grey Cup was won by Calgary over Ottawa. And in boxing, Joe Louis became a household name when he won the heavyweight boxing championship. In the arts, Hamlet was the top of the movies, and Sir Lawrence Oliver and Jane Wyman were the top movie stars of the year. This was the year that two famous television shows began, Ed Sullivan and Texaco Star Theatre with Milton Berle. In music, the big song of the year were It's Most Unusual Day, Powder Your Face with Sunshine, and Tennessee Waltz. In fashion, nylon dresses were the fashion in 1948, along with raccoon coats. All right, we'll do Howard Newell next. The Disappearance of Howard Newell, Little River Harbor, 1955. Finding out that your child is missing must be the nightmare of every parent. On Saturday, January 22nd, 1955, a 6-year-old boy named Howard Newell went disappear. This was a huge shock to the tiny community of Little River Harbor. Howard was last seen taking a shortcut across the marsh near his home. He was heading home for lunch after playing about 1/3 of a mile away from his home. The group he was with went one way while little Howard took a shortcut. They were the last known people to see Howard alive. Shortly after the disappearance, a massive search was initiated by Yarmouth County, under the direction of Corporal Black of the RCMP and George Gribbs. On Sunday morning, the temperature in Yarmouth area dropped below freezing, but even a constant wind coming off the water did not stop search efforts. By Sunday afternoon, more than 1,000 searchers volunteered their time to comb the area. The Royal Canadian Navy helicopter from CFB Shearwater and 3 propeller-driven aircrafts joined the search for the little boy. It was the largest manhunt in the history of Nova Scotia. The searchers formed a line 12 feet apart and checked every bog, lake, and pond in the area. They left no area unchecked. The search for Howard Newell was then considered the largest search ever conducted in the history of southwest Nova Scotia. The local high school students had taken part in the search because everyone had hoped of finding Howard. Even every church, as well as many residents, had their families in their prayers. After a few days after Howard's disappearance, a cap similar to the one Howard was wearing was found on a nearby island. Speculation about the boy's disappearance mounted throughout the area. Most believe that the boy had drowned in the local pond in the marshy area, or that he might have fallen through the ice. On Thursday, January 28, 1955, a well-known local company, Kenny Construction Limited, brought in equipment to drain the large water hole in the marsh. Still, nothing was found. By Friday, January 29th, the number of searchers had dropped down to 200. No evidence was found to suggest foul play, but searchers found what was believed to be Howard's footprint in the woods nearby. On Saturday, only 1 week after his disappearance, the Royal Canadian helicopter was ordered back to base. Howard Newell was never found. The RCMP concluded Howard Newell was a victim of drowning. This was the only logical explanation that they could find for his disappearance. His disappearance became known as RCMP Case File 2253. In 1988, 33 years after his disappearance, the RCMP reopened his case. Corporal Brian Oldford responded to persistent reports that foul play had resulted in the 6-year-old's disappearance. 8 months after the RCMP investigation started, the RCMP cleared the prime suspect in the case. All of the other suspects passed the lie detector test except for 2 other males who had died before the case was reopened. Howard's mother, Loretta, died without knowing what really happened on that day in 1955. Howard's family and friends still don't know what happened to the little boy. And not knowing what happened is the hardest part of the Newell family and the tiny community of Little River Harbor. This is a mystery everyone would like an answer to. And this is the map. The area. So they think he fell into the swamp. I believe in one of the other books, it does go over this case again with updated information and like speculation on what they think happened. Spoiler warning. They think what happened is the kid got out to the road and he was hit by a drunk driver, or 2 guys in a vehicle when they were drunk. They freaked out, threw him in the back of the truck, brought him home, buried him under the wood pile, and then lit the wood pile on fire. I believe, I haven't read it, like I said, in 20, 30 years, but if memory serves me correctly, that is the suspicion of what happened to him. He got out here, he got hit, and they hid the body. All right. How are we doing for time? Ghost of Sam is a pretty big one. I don't know if they solved her murder or not. There's this lady and this one that happened 5 years apart. And I think my neighbor was a serial killer, and I think this is him, her, or the other lady that he admitted to, but he did one and not the other. Anyway, let's do this one next. Don't need to get ahead of ourselves. The ghosts that haunt a local restaurant, Yarmouth, 1970s. There have long been rumors circulating around Yarmouth County about the ghost of Eunice, a restaurant near the town of Yarmouth. Many people come from miles around just to sample their fine menu. However, stranger than fictions things have happened. Things happen within the premise nobody can explain. Most of the employees at the restaurant have unexplained experiences. Late one evening, the maitre d' was closing the restaurant up for the night. All of a sudden, a strange odor began to creep around her. Curious, she began to try and find the source of the smell. As she neared the dining room, it became very strong. It was a mix of hay, manure, and other such scents. Later, she found out that a barn used to sit where the dining room now located. Sometimes the employee would forget to turn the attic light out before they left. One night when this happened, the manager of Eunice got... Okay. One night when this happened, the manager of Eunice got a late phone call. Oh, okay, I understand the sentence now. Okay. Would turn the attic light out before they left. One night, when this happened, the manager of Eunice got a late phone call. "You left the light on and I can't sleep," an old woman's voice crackled. After she called a second time, he drove down and turned the light off. No more calls were made that night. Okay, so the ghost called the manager, told him to turn the light off. She can't sleep. Okay. Many of the workers at Eunice's could feel the presence of ghosts as soon as they walked through the door. There was one place by the receiving door where some employees refused to go alone. A baby would cry from within the walls at this particular spot. Yeah, fuck that. There are times when the ghosts made contact. Occasionally they would say hi or just flutter by, so you'd only get a glance, though, through the corner of your eye. One of the previous cooks went to turn quickly one day and walked right through the ghost of a man who was standing behind her. It was not clearly defined, and strangely, she was not frightened when it happened. Early one morning, the breakfast cook was in the kitchen preparing for the meal. Suddenly, the kitchen became strangely cold, and an odd smell wafted in, penetrating her senses. Slowly, she walked towards the lounge, where she saw many men and women dressed in old-fashioned clothing and dancing. It was difficult to believe, and they seemed more like visions than anything. Many people believe that the ghosts had a strange sense of humor. The ghosts had a strange sense of humor. They will do things such as bang from within the walls, wail loudly, and even move objects. One day, a heavy board which covered the receiving door window popped out and nearly hit one of the chefs. She went to fix it after her fright, and it had been mysteriously gone back into place, but no one had put it back. Trays of rolls would often seen hovering above counters. It had been agreed upon that animals and small children have sensory perception far superior to that of adults and can often sense supernatural presences we can't. One day last summer, a couple came in with their small boy for dinner. They received their menus, and before the ordering, the boy went into a tantrum, screaming how they couldn't stay because he was scared and he wanted to leave. They left and did not come back. Sometimes, late at night, you may see the ghosts looking out from Eunice's window, or hear music long after they've closed. Or perhaps you'll be looking inside the restaurant and see ghosts out of the corner of your eye. Who knows where they are? Who knows why they are here? Perhaps they are just keeping an eye on their property. I don't know what building this is. I think this restaurant might have burnt down. Alright, how long have we been running? I don't know. We'll do one more. We'll get up to Sam, the ghost of Sam. We'll do that next time. Graves in the front yard. Wyman Road, 1984. In 1984, Warren Burns and his family moved into the newly built home on the Wyman Road. While Warren Burns, David Solos, were digging the new septic tank, they came upon a large rock. They removed the rock from its resting place, and behind it uncovered a tunnel along with part of a bone. The tunnel was large enough to crawl through, and flat rocks made the ceiling. A piece of lace was found near the entrance of the tunnel and was thought to be from a woman's dress. The bone was taken to be analyzed and later found to be part of a woman's arm, from the wrist to the elbow. Digging further, Burns and Swallows came across an underground room made of beach rock. To add to these discoveries, at the new home, the dog had also dug up a little satchel from the backyard. This satchel contained old coins and arrowheads. On the front lawn, there was yet something else that was not ordinarily found. 2 mounds of slightly different colors of grass were found on the lawns. The mounds were approximately the same shape and size as graves. Near these 2 mounds of earth, a rock was found that may or may not have been used as a type of headstone. Is there any connection between the mounds of earth and the bones in the tunnel? Or is it just a matter of coincidence and someone overactive imagination? Well, it is puzzling. Solos barely recalled the incident and has no idea what ever happened to the bone that was found. As for the piece of the dress, he recalled those items but only vaguely. Today, Dave Swallows sees nothing unusual of the incident. He claimed that the so-called room was probably a drain of some kind. In fact, he commented that a similar drain was found nearby. Other local residents do not agree with swallows. This room was well constructed and far too large to be a drain. And if it was, why was there a bone and a piece of cloth in it? Fact, fiction, or just another mystery for Yarmouth? On this one, we'll let you be the judge. Good Lord. All right. We're almost through this book. We have 3 more stories to go. I think we're going to do that another day. But anyway, if you stop by, thanks for saying hi, and I'll see you next time. Oh. Ow. I thought I hit the exit. Okay. Bye-bye.